The Stranger Things podcast, episode number 7.
The Bathtub.
Lucas! Where are they? I don't know. I think we lost them. Go, 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 go! Did you see what you did to that van?
No, Dustin, we missed it.
I mean, that was awesome.
It was awesome.
Welcome to the Stranger Things podcast, a fan podcast dedicated to the original Netflix series
Stranger Things.
I'm Darrell.
And I'm Addi.
How are you today?
Pretty neat.
Me too. I just finished watching episode 7 for the second time about 5 minutes ago, and I am really excited to be talking about it. But I will tell you this, Addi. For the first time, this is not an episode that I liked better than the one before.
I knew you were going to say that.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I loved everything about this episode. I was telling you, we were at the store yesterday, and we were getting into the car, and we were talking about it as we walked, to the car, and I said, that episode, the first time I watched it, it ended, and I was like, how'd that happen? I just pushed the play button like 10 minutes ago. It was one of those episodes that just went by so fast, which is obviously a sign of a well-written, well-constructed episode. So I loved the episode, but not as much as I loved the preceding episode. And I'm really curious, too, to see when I rewatch the series how they're all going to stack up. But anyway, good stuff for sure. Well, let's get into it. Addi, why don't you tell us who wrote and directed this episode?
This episode is written by Justin Doby and directed by the Duffer Brothers.
Who are the Duffer Brothers?
They are people who directed this episode of Stranger Things.
Oh, okay. And how are they connected to each other?
They're brothers.
I think you're right. I think you're onto something. Well, as I said, thanks for joining us for this episode. Episode 7, the penultimate episode of the first season. I'm excited because as soon as we finish recording this, we were recording this on, July the 6th. I'm excited because as soon as we finish recording this, I get to hit play and watch the season
That's
finale.
what I was going to say. Okay.
Okay.
You want to tell everyone how you woke me up this morning?
Yeah, so you were already awake, but just barely. You'd been awake for like 2 minutes because your mom had gone in there. And I jumped on your bed, and I was like, Addison, guess what today is? And you're like, I don't know, Thursday. No, guess what today is? And then you said, I don't remember what you said after that.
The day we record our podcast for episode 7.
Yeah, and then what did I say?
You were like, you know what that means? And I was like, because we only have 1 episode left. And you were like, and you get to watch episode 8 today? Yeah, that's right. And you were like, tell them what you did.
Well, you were still laying down, and I was like, I put my hands on your belly, and I was like bouncing you up and down in your bed. That's right, I get to watch the season finale today. That means I don't have to avoid spoilers anymore. It was really exciting for me.
Lol.
And you were just like, get out of my room.
That's true.
Yeah. Anyway.
I was looking over at Mom for help.
Yeah, you were. Yeah, you mouthed, help me.
Several times.
Yeah, she did
several times.
Didn't work.
She just stood there.
I'm really excited to be talking about this episode for more than one reason. One is I love the episode. Another is I love talking about Stranger Things. So we're going to spend the majority of our episode talking through the episode, things we liked and things that we noticed and stuff like that. Before we do that, we're going to do the episode recap. And I think I forgot to mention in our last episode, I don't want to forget this time, that the great folks over at the Fan Wiki are putting together those episode recaps. So they're not doing them for us. It's just something that we're using that they are putting together. So go check them out. You can find that over at strangerthings.wikia.com. Love the Fan Wikis, and so go check that out. Thanks to everyone who's a contributor over there. After we do our episode discussion, we're going to do a little quote of the week where Addison picks her favorite moment of the episode. Then I've got just one prediction for this episode. Then we're going to do some news and rumors and close it all out with the meme of the week.
The meme of the week.
Just saw for the first time, and I'm... Oh. That's really good. Yeah. Except that should not be that person. It should be another person. And instead of saying life, it should say van. Wouldn't that be funny? You'll have to wait and see what the meme of the week is when we get there. Maybe that'll make sense. All right,
Yeah,
Addi.
it's still not funny, though.
Let's get into the episode recap. Mike and Eleven are sharing an intimate moment in the basement bathroom when Dustin bursts through the door, telling them that Lucas may be in trouble. Over the radio, Lucas warns them that the bad men are coming. They then leave on their bikes as they are pursued by Brenner and various other Hawkins lab agents. During the chase, they reunite with Lucas but soon find the agents aren't far behind. As they are trying to get away, one of the vans blocks their path. 11 uses her powers to flip the van, ensuring their escape. Reaching their junkyard base, Lucas apologizes to Elle for calling her a traitor, and in turn, she apologizes for lying. Mike also apologizes, and Lucas accepts his handshake. Hopper and Joyce arrive at the police station and demand Callahan and Powell release Jonathan. The officers refuse and reveal the stash of hunting gear in Jonathan's trunk. Hopper demands to know why he had such items, but Jonathan claims he wouldn't believe him. Brenner and his agents arrive at the Wheeler house. As they begin searching the residence, Connie Fraser speaks with Karen and Ted. She asks them if they know anything about 11, to which they respond, no. Karen then becomes furious, demanding to know why they are there. Brenner then steps in, telling her that her son is in danger, and asking where he is. At the junkyard, the kids are discussing Hawkins' laboratory when they notice helicopters overhead. They decide to take refuge in an abandoned bus. Back at the police station, Nancy and Jonathan tell Hopper about the monster. As Joyce and Jonathan have a conversation in the hallway, Hopper steps out of his office when he overhears an argument between Callahan and a woman. The woman is revealed to be Troy's mother, who's there to report his arm had been broken by another child. Hopper becomes interested when Troy describes the girl's appearance, and he asks for more information. Troy tells him about her abilities and that she's always with Mike, Lucas, and Dustin. Meanwhile, Steve is with Tommy and Carol in the parking lot of Fairmart. When Tommy and Carol make crude insults about Nancy, Steve finally has enough. They have a falling out, and Steve drives away. While surveilling the agents swarming her house, Nancy becomes worried about Mike. Hopper tells her they haven't found him yet and asks where he is. She doesn't know, but Jonathan claims to know a way to find out. Hopper, Joyce, Nancy, and Jonathan go to the Byers' house, where they use Will's walkie-talkie to contact the kids. However, they debate over whether they should answer, fearing it could be a trap. As Hopper is about to give up, Mike answers and tells them their location. At the Hawk, some employees are cleaning the marquee when Steve arrives. He asks if he can help and begins removing the graffiti from the sign. In the bus, the kids anxiously wait for Hopper. When they hear someone arrive, they quickly scramble to the front of the bus. Upon seeing that it's agents that have arrived, they quickly go back to hide. Before the agents can enter the bus, they are knocked unconscious by Hopper. He then urges the kids to come with him. Hopper and the kids meet up with Joyce, Nancy, and Jonathan at the Byers' house. Mike, Dustin, and Lucas explain the Upside Down, telling them that Will and Barb are trapped there. When 11 fails to find Will and Barb, she proposes that she can find them in the bath. Dustin calls Mr. Clark, asking the requirements for a makeshift isolation tank. The group travels to the middle school, setting up a kiddie pool and filling it with de-icing salt. 11 enters the pool, delving into a deep psychic state. She first finds Barb's corpse, witnessing a slug slither from her mouth. This causes 11 to break down and scream. After she is comforted by Joyce, she finds Will hiding in the upside-down version of Castle Byers. She tells him that his mother will be coming for him, and he tells her to hurry. Suddenly, 11 loses contact, and Will vanishes. Hopper and Joyce decide to go to Hawkins' lab in order to get Will back. Nancy and Jonathan resolve to kill the monster and steal their hunting gear back from the police station. Hopper and Joyce attempt to break into the lab, but are apprehended by agents and security guards before they're able to enter the building. In the Upside Down, an incapacitated Will is shown singing in Castle Byers as the monster breaks in. All right, episode recap over. That means it's time to talk about this bad boy. You know what I'm looking forward to before we break into this episode? I am looking forward to episode 8 with you because for the first time, you and I will be on equal footing. All discussions are on the table. You don't have to worry about not spoiling me. You're going to make your own predictions in the next episode. I can't wait for that. Yeah. It's only fair. So be thinking about that. But let's talk about this episode. Starts out in the Wazowski house.
The Wheelers.
It's what I said. Mike and Elle are they in the bathroom? Where are they at?
I think they're in the bathroom and like in the basement where when they first meet Elle. Well, in episode 2, whenever they give her the clothes to change into.
Yeah.
I think that's the bathroom that she was changing in.
I think that's right. Yeah.
That scene was hilarious.
The changing scene?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I thought you meant this scene, because Dustin's funny in this scene, too, because it looks like Elle and Mike might be fixing to do a little smoochy smooch, and Dustin breaks in.
I know. Dustin, stop. This is the one scene I don't like with him in it, even though Dustin's my favorite character, and he will always be my favorite character.
Uh-huh. So you wanted to see Mike and Elle kiss?
Of course.
Oh, okay. Okay. I don't know that I do. I mean, I'm not saying ever. Just not yet. So I was okay with the way it played out. You can see there's a little bit of attraction there. Obviously, Mike's been attracted to her from the very beginning. She looks pretty neat, or whatever it was he said.
He said good.
Yeah. So he's even been teased about it, but not yet. Needs to build up a little bit more. So this was good, though. I like the way they handled it. Okay. The rest of this scene, though, at the house is really, really good. I love the opening and love the ending of this episode. Again, just love the episode in general. Lucas is on the walkie-talkie and yelling for them, saying the bad men are coming. And then you have them recognizing there's a strange van outside. And Mike goes to talk to his mom to see if she has some sort of work scheduled for her or service scheduled or something for that day.
Like work to be done on the house or something like that.
Yeah.
Because it said like power and energy, something like that on the side of the van.
Yep. Another funny scene. And I don't know who's funnier in this scene, if it was Dustin or Mike, because they're both pretty freaking hilarious with what they're doing.
I love when Dustin makes eye contact with the dude in the van. Like he's just like, and like I love that part. He just looks so scared, and he's like, Mike, we need to leave right now. And like he says it like really dramatically. Yeah,
exactly. Now, if I'm the mom, I mean, what do you think? Because I mean, the boys are clearly acting weirder than even normal, but she's gonna find out pretty quickly. But yeah, pretty crazy. The only thing crazier, maybe, is the ensuing van chase / bicycle chase. Again, one of these scenes that reminds you of ET, because the scientists are chasing the kids on their bikes at one point. ET's in the basket, and then of course ET makes them fly. In this case, something does fly, but it's not the kids. Nor is it E.T. I don't know. I thought it was a really fun and exciting scene. What about you?
I think it was really awesome whenever she made the van flip and then it just like breaks. And then they're all just like, did you see that? That was awesome. Like the look on their faces, they're just like, whoa.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing. I love the visual effect. They did a great job on it. It looked real. You know, too bad it wasn't Brenner's van, but of course it wasn't Brenner's van. He's not going to be in the crashed van. He just what I thought was weird, but I guess I shouldn't have thought it was weird, was Brenner and the other guys get out of their vans and no one's going to check on the guy or guys that were in the crashed van. They're all instead just standing there looking at the kids get away. Meanwhile, your buddies over here are probably bleeding out on the street. Nice to know you care.
But they don't care.
Exactly. They don't. So then they get to the, what do we call this? The junkyard? Is that a good name for it?
I don't know.
And you and I talked about this scene a little bit at dinner tonight. Because of you, you got me really paying attention to the soundtrack on Stranger Things. Because you listen to it all the time. I don't know how many times you've listened to it, but it seems like you're listening to it at some point just about every single day. So for me, because of you, I recognized that when they get to the junkyard, Lucas comes over to Elle, apologizes to her. You know, she says, friends don't lie, because she had lied to them. So she apologizes for that. And then Mike and Lucas shake hands, and it was kind of right in the midst of that you hear the music kick in, and it's called Kids 2 is the name of that song. And as soon as it kicked in, I was like, oh my gosh, it's the music. And so anyway,
which is my favorite song because it's the song that plays in my favorite scene, which is in episode 4, it's the makeover scene whenever they, give Eleven a makeover.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Scroll down to the bottom.
Scrolling down to the bottom. Very nice. That's pretty good Photoshop there. Not really, but it's funny. That is, I guess we should explain. That is some Photoshop that they have. It looks like they've taken the original 1980 whatever ET with Elliot and ET in the basket and whoever was in the bike behind him, and they've photoshopped Dustin in the background, and then Lucas, you can see his face is photoshopped on somebody, and then Mike's face is photoshopped on what would have been Elliot's face from ET, and then Elle is in the basket under the blanket like ET would have been. That's really funny. I think I've seen that before, but never.
Well, you were just talking about it earlier, so I figured I should put it there.
Didn't know the context until now, so anyway, good stuff. Okay.
Wait, is that actually Dustin's Photoshop face, or is that the actual kid who looks exactly like Dustin from ET?
I don't know. Well, no, it's not Dustin. It's not the right hat, is it?
No.
Yeah, it's got to be the original. It just looks like Dustin from that little view we have. Okay. So there's a couple of things that happened this episode. I'm not going to touch on it just now, but this is kind of one of those. But I'll make the point about it later. But at the police station, so Hopper and Joyce, I think we saw in the last episode that they needed to come to the police station because it was about Jonathan. That might have been this episode. I'm getting them a little bit confused. But anyway, they show up. Jonathan's there. And then Nancy, of course, is there too. The really interesting thing, though, is the bully shows up. And which bully is this?
Troy.
With his mom. And Hopper's trying to get rid of him. But then the bully mentions something about the creepy girl with no hair or shaved head. And turns out to be some really useful information.
Yep.
Except that even in that scene, even with all the adults around, Troy's still being punk and calling them all the weirdos and losers.
I know, even everyone I know, even whenever they're really rude, with no other, parents and teachers around, or adults. I mean, they're not rude with adults around, but this kid doesn't know where to stop.
Exactly. It's like, I'm exactly with you. It's like, those kids that are jerks, but then the adults around, they act like they're little angels. Yeah, clearly he doesn't care.
Yeah, and his mom seems all proper and stuff, and then she looks all proper and stuff, and then she actually starts talking, and then you realize you know where Troy gets it from.
That's right. Yep, apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Okay, let's talk about what happens at the Wazowski house after the boys leave. Because the parentals finally get clued in a little bit on what's been going on.
And they still don't believe it.
No, that's why I say a little bit, because there's still a lot they don't know. They still haven't met Elle and stuff like that. So I'm assuming that's going to happen at some point. And then even later in the episode, when they're trying to figure out, is Nancy involved in this? Nancy with Mike? No. They're just completely clueless. But Karen does find the blanket fort and a piece of the wig. And then that's when I've got a new name for them, and surely I'm not the first to come up with this. I'm calling them the scientists, the lab rats.
Like that Disney XD show.
Well, that's true. Because, rats are usually, something that makes people sick, or they're icky, or they're dirty or nasty, whatever. And then they're from the lab. So they're the lab rats.
All right.
You like that? Can we go with that?
Sure,
Are you on board with that? Okay. So the lab rats show up. They start telling the parentals about the stuff that's been going on. And Brenner says that Mike is in danger and asks for their trust. And of course, you and I know Brenner, and he just sounds like a sleazeball, doesn't he? Like when he's describing, how much that Mike is in danger, and then I need you to trust me, all these other things, and just his tone. And I don't know how they can trust him.
He sounds creepy.
Yeah. And later we get a scene between them, and they're staring out the window. This is the same scene, I think, when she says, "You don't think Nancy's involved in this, do you?" That it seems like Karen doesn't trust Brenner. And the dad, what's the dad's name even? Do you know? Ted? Yeah, he's just like, well, it's our government. We've got to trust them. So he's dumb.
He really is. And so whenever they are talking with the Dr. Brenner, or it might have been the girl,
mm-hmm.
and they're like, oh, a girl's been hanging out in your basement or whatever. The dad is like, Mike with a girl? No way. Like, he doesn't even think that his son has skills, to talk to a girl. Like, that makes me really mad. I want to punch their dad in the face.
Well, I don't know. I mean, he may not think that Mike really has much interest in girls yet, because he's very active with his guy friends and doesn't maybe express a lot of interest in girls.
Well, that's because none of them have superpowers. So, except for, 11.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it is funny, though, when the dad says that.
It's not funny. It's rude.
It is rude, but it's funny.
It's not funny.
All right, fine. Okay, let's talk about Steve.
Ew.
Got a little bit of Steve in this episode. First time we see him. I don't remember his jerk friends' names. I really should know these
Tommy
names by
and
now.
Carol.
Thank you. I depend on you to know them. That's really sloppy of me. I'll step it up.
I depend on your notes to do mine, so it evens out.
Yay, we're a team. Yay. You said Tommy and what?
Carol.
I was going to say Carol. I thought, no, it's Karen. I'm getting the names confused again. Steve finally tells them off. And you and I were talking I think last week about how Carol just never shuts up. You just want to punch her in the face.
Mm-hmm.
And she just starts blabbing on again. Steve finally has enough of it, tells both of them off. And they try to justify their behavior, making it sound like Steve's the bad guy in this whole situation. And I'm like, for the first time, Steve's actually doing something good. I mean, you could technically say when he apologized to Nancy a couple episodes ago, but I always felt like that apology was really kind of
fake.
Yeah. It wasn't fully sincere. It was more just he felt like it was the thing he needed to do to, get her back the way he wanted. It wasn't really a sincere apology. This obviously was sincere. So I say this is the first good thing we've seen out of Steve.
I still don't like him.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Whenever he's telling them to be quiet, he's actually had enough of it, because weren't they making fun of Nancy or something?
Yeah, well, yeah, the guy was talking about how basically she had it coming.
Well, yeah, and then so he didn't like that he was talking about Nancy like that. So he starts saying, "Oh, don't say stuff like that," and he tells Tommy to shut up, and Carol. It was one of them, and then they're like, "Oh, he's overreacting." They think he went too far, and no, he just told you guys to shut up because all of us have been wanting to.
Yeah,
so, yeah, because literally no one likes him.
Yeah,
so.
You're exactly right. So that was good. That a few minutes after that, we see Steve. It's almost like he left that little gas station they were at and then drove straight to the movie theater, where he just shows up and starts, he volunteers to clean the paint off. And the guy's like, aren't you the one that did this? And anyway.
No, he didn't actually admit to doing it. He just said, I want to help.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't say, yeah, I was the one that did it. Can I help you? But no, he didn't want to take the blame for it.
Well, it sounded like the other guy's the one that did it, because at the gas station, Steve was like, I should have taken that paint can and shoved it down your throat. But still, he's responsible for it. He knew it was going on. So yeah, second good thing we've seen out of Steve. Is this going to be a new Steve? Is he turning over a new leaf? Is he going to be likable?
He will never be likable. He could do all the good things in the world, and I still won't like him.
Huh. Well, you and I talked about that Funko Pop character 2 episodes ago. Mm-hmm. And then last week I said, oh, now I know how he got beat up on that Funko Pop. Well, there was something else on that Funko Pop that I didn't say last week because I didn't want to spoil those who still haven't seen the Funko Pop, still haven't seen, at that point, episodes 7 and 8. So there's still one other component with that Funko Pop that I still haven't figured out. Must be something that will be revealed to me next episode. But it does give me the impression that perhaps Steve, at least for the time being, will continue his good streak. Continue his streak of good streak. How do you like that? Anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. But we'll see. We'll find out. But I'm not saying I like Steve or anything like that. I'm just saying this is the kind of behavior I can support. So we're done with Steve. And we've got some really good stuff to talk. The rest of this stuff, I think, is going to be really exciting stuff. So the kids, they wind up at the junkyard. That's where we last left them. They're hiding in the bus, and they get a call because at the police station, after they learn about Elle, what the bully told them, then all of them kind of decide they need to figure out where Mike is. He's in danger, and we see Hopper and Nancy kind of overlooking her house and realize, the lab rats have been there. So they're trying to get a hold of him. Jonathan has the idea to go find the walkie-talkie. Brilliant idea. That works. And so they get a call from Hopper. Well, Nancy first, and then Hopper steps in. And they don't know whether to believe them or maybe whether they're reaching out to them, it's a trap type of thing. This was a funny scene for me because Dustin, first brings up the Star Wars reference. Mentions Lando. Do you know the Star Wars connection there with Lando Calrissian?
Well, I know it was from Star Wars, but I didn't get the reference.
In The Empire Strikes Back, which would have come out in 1980, Lando used to own the Millennium Falcon. Han Solo won it from him, and so, but he and Han are kind of friends, kind of rivals, kind of friendly. It's not even frenemies. They're closer than that. But anyway, Han and the gang, Luke, Leia, they all need someplace to kind of hide. So they decide to go to Cloud City, where Lando is like the governor of this Cloud City. And unfortunately, Darth Vader and his stormtrooper goons have shown up just before Han and Luke and Leia. And Lando doesn't give them any indication that he's there. And so he welcomes them and da-da-da-da-da, they're hanging out. And then he's like, hey, let's go in here and have some dinner. And the door opens and there's Darth Vader. And they're all captured. And it was a trap. So that's what he's saying here. It's like, Lando being Hopper, you think is your friend, but he's actually being controlled. He's actually under the power of Darth Vader. And, he's kind of being forced to act like he's your friend in this situation to lure you right into him, right? So that's what Dustin was talking about. It's Lando, it's, whatever. But I have to admit, this scene disappointed me a little bit. But I'm hoping it was intentional. Dustin says, I don't feel good about this. Now, there's a famous line that appears in every single Star Wars movie. Do you know what it is?
I've got a bad feeling about this.
Yes. Congratulations on reading my notes. Yeah, it's either I've got a bad feeling about this or I have a bad feeling. It's used interchangeably. I have a bad feeling about this or I've got a bad feeling about this. That would have been the perfect line, Dustin. Instead of saying, I don't feel good about this, he should have said, I've got a bad feeling about this.
You let Dustin be. He's doing it perfectly. Just no.
But I'm guessing the writers didn't want to be like total Star Wars here. I'm hoping. I don't know. I would have liked to have seen him say, I've got a bad feeling about this. That would have been perfect.
Whenever you first said something about how this scene like disappointed you or whatever.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about how like you wanted them to get captured.
What?
I was like, Dad, what is wrong with you?
Yes, I wanted them to get captured. What? Do you really thought that?
Yes.
Wow. Man. You disappoint me. That you would think that of me. You don't even know me.
Boo-hoo.
All right. So, Hopper shows up, takes out the lab rats, and then this show does something that is crazy, off the rails, unprecedented.
Because, yeah, Hopper, Joyce, Jonathan, Nancy, Mike, Dustin, Lucas, and 11, they all get together and actually, like, talk and discuss, like, what they know about the situation. And, like, in a lot of shows, they don't do that.
That's exactly right. And earlier when we were talking about the police station, I said I'm going to hit on this note later. That's what I was going to talk about. I mean, Joyce, because at the police station, Joyce and Jonathan and Hopper get together and compare their notes, and Nancy, and that was good. But now we have the entire gang. I told you while we were shopping yesterday, like if they had done that on Lost, like if they had gotten around the campfire at night and said, hey, what happened to you today? Who'd you talk to? What'd you discover in the jungle? And they compared notes. Like 2 whole seasons could have got cut out of that show.
Did you really want 2 seasons cut out?
No, I didn't. But I'm just saying there were so many times where it was like, if you would just talk to each other, you wouldn't have got yourself into this mess you're in right here. So anyway, I love it that the writers are acting like these people actually have brains and they know how to use them and they know how to communicate and they know how to work together as a team. It's unheard of, and I like it. So, because now they can write situations that are based on the team trying something, and it, probably doesn't go according to plan. That's fine. But it's much better to do that than to have everybody doing these things on their own without communicating. Having said that, of course, the show ends, or the episode ends with them kind of doing their own things and not fully telling each other about it. So we'll see how long the teamwork stays together. But anyway, I loved it. It was great. So what did we learn in this scene?
So 11 goes to the bathroom, and whenever she's in there, she notices the bathtub, and she's like, okay, I can find Barb with the bathtub. And they're like, all right, time to build an isolation tank. So Dustin over here just calls his science teacher at like 10 o'clock at night.
Poor Mr. Clark. He is trying to make his moves on his girl, and Dustin's interrupting his date.
I know, that was pretty funny.
It was awesome. Because Mr. Clark was like, okay, let's talk about this Monday. Kind of looking over at his date,
And Dustin is like, why are you closing this door? And he like turns it back on him, and I think that's hilarious. Dustin is awesome, and he gets what he wants.
He's very persuasive. Mr. Clark, he's like on Gilligan's Island, you had the professor, right? I know the Gilligan's Island is even before my time, but it was where they crashed they're shipwrecked on this, tropical island. And this guy was the professor. And it was like, just because he was a professor, he knows everything about everything. And I Mr. Clark seems to be that way. It's like, Mr. Clark, you're sciencey. You must know about this, how to build it's one thing to know about an isolation thing. Like I told you what I know about them a couple weeks ago.
Well, he's also kind of nerdy, so he knows how to do that stuff. Like in episode 5, whenever he's explaining the flea and the acrobat, like he knows exactly how to do that because he's like a nerd. He knows how to do that stuff. He's done actual research because he's a nerd.
Maybe so. I mean, I'm not saying it's outside the realm of possibility. I'm just saying it was a little bit convenient. But, Mr. Clark reminds me of Mr. Delp from your your old middle school. Mr. Delp was the science teacher, one of the science teachers there, and also was the coach of the academic team. So we get to know him through that. But he was also just really cool just to talk to. I don't know if you ever did that because maybe you didn't, but he and I did. From time to time, we would just chat, and he's kind of geeky, and anyway, it just reminds me a lot of Mr. Clark.
And Mr. Clark is more like a friend to them than a teacher.
Yeah. And I don't, obviously I don't have the relationship with Mr. Delp that Colby does, as being on the academic team and having him as a teacher, but you could tell he really cared about those kids, and it wasn't just a job to him. He would do anything for them. And Mr. Clark strikes me as the same way. So anyway, I like Mr. Clark a whole lot. So Dustin gets the information he needs, and quite a bit of time spent just getting the resources together to build the tank. I don't think we need to cover any of that. But,
sorry. Going back to the phone conversation.
Yeah.
Whenever Mr. Clark asks why they're doing this, Justin's just like, fun?
Yeah.
That's hilarious to me. He's just like, okay, yeah, we're doing this for fun. And he doesn't ask any more questions, I guess.
Yeah.
Because teenage boys building an isolation tank at 10 o'clock at night on a Saturday.
On a Saturday, right. Yeah. I loved when Dustin, he got the information and now he's trying to get him off the phone. And I don't know if you've ever done this, like you're talking with somebody and you think you're done. You're like, okay, bye. And then they say something else, but you're already in the motion of putting the phone down. So you just kind of take the phone up to your mouth. Like you don't put it back up to your ear. You just kind of put it sideways up to your mouth and go, okay, thanks. Have you ever done that?
No.
Oh man, I've done it so many times. Dustin does that in this episode.
Most of the time whenever I'm done talking and the other person keeps talking, I'm just like, okay, I get it. Bye. Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Okay, so they build the isolation tank or the deprivation tank, whichever name you want to go with here. And Elle, boy, she gets in and gets into that kind of space almost immediately, it seems, and she encounters Barb. Barb looks dead. She even says Barb is dead.
No, she says gone.
I thought she said dead the first time and then gone, but I wasn't real clear on the first time. The second time, you're absolutely right. She definitely said gone then.
Yeah, and then Nancy's just like, no.
Mm-hmm. Pretty sad.
Because, Nancy was being a really bad friend, and then Barb just died, so they ended like that, and that's just like really sad to know that they ended like in the middle of a fight, and that's sad.
I'm a little bit confused because during the intro to, was it the Golden Globes last year or the Emmys, there was this huge production opening of the show. And in one of the things that was part of that was Barb, like,
she came out of the swimming pool.
Yeah.
And 11 was rapping. Yeah, my name is 11 and I'm 24/7 eating egg and waffles.
Wow, I don't remember all that.
I do.
I just remember Barb popping out, and I didn't know who it was. I didn't think anything of it, and I don't know if it was you or online, because we have so many geeky friends online. Somebody remarked about Barb. Does that mean she's alive? And for whatever reason, that of all things, of all the Stranger Things that I've seen, yeah, I have forgotten 90% of it, thankfully. But that one thing has stuck in my head, and so now I'm like, oh, Barb looked pretty dead. I don't know. So if I were to make a prediction with no knowledge, I would say she's dead. She's absolutely dead. No question. We saw her. She's dead. She's decaying. So I'm going to stick with that. Even though I've got that other thing in my head, I'm just going to stick with she's
I'm
dead.
pretty sure she's dead too, but they might have just, since she was going to be at the awards show, it would make sense to put her in the video. And since everyone loves her and she's like a small character, but a big character, since everyone, thinks about her. And they turned, just a side character into someone that is a little more important. So it makes sense to put her in the video and say Barb is still alive.
I could go for that. Okay. So Barb is dead. Elle freaks out. This might be my favorite part of the episode because we've seen Elle freak out a few times. It seems like every time she goes into that nether region, whatever that is, you know, she freaks out. So she sees something, whether it's the monster, the first time when she wasn't sure what it was, and then, of course, we saw her completely freak out when she touched it and it turned around. But it never ends well for her, right? And this is going the same way. She sees Barb. Barb is dead, and she starts to freak out. Joyce is the mom. She's the only mom there. All the others are either kids or Hopper's a dad. But you know, there's a difference between your mom and I. When you're sick, you don't go to me.
That's true.
You know, you go to me for other things, but you know, your mom and most ladies are this way. They are so gifted in that area. And Joyce is the same way.
Yeah, she's treating 11 like she's her own daughter.
She is. She starts comforting her and speaking positive words to her and reassuring her and letting her know that. And then the others around it, they notice that and they start doing the same thing. And Elle calms down. And I loved this so much because 11 has always felt like, I mean, she's in an isolation tank, but she feels like she's alone. There's no one else like her. She's a freak or she's a monster, right? You know, and when she goes into these places, it's up to her. No one else but her can do this and go there and see what she sees and communicate back. She is alone. But with Joyce here in this scene, you know, she's letting her know she's not alone. We're with you. And then everyone else chimes in. And this is family. That's what family does. And this is what you do when you're a team and you're working together. It was awesome. It was just such a nice contrast to what Elle has experienced every other time that she's gone into that space. So, and it all starts with Joyce. So again, Joyce just continues to be one of my favorite characters. And this is probably my favorite scene with Joyce so far, although her and the light ball was pretty awesome too. But this was wonderful. Probably my favorite moment of the episode.
Cool.
Okay. So Elle regathers herself, continues to look, and now she finds
Will.
Oh, I didn't really write any notes about Will. So
I noticed that, so yeah. I wasn't...
That's weird.
I was like, did this happen in the next episode, or...
Yeah. So we don't really see a whole lot about Will. I mean, she sees him. She's there with him. She's talking
actually,
with him.
Yeah, talking to him. Mm-hmm. And she's trying to like comfort him and stuff. And he obviously looks scared and like half dead.
Mm-hmm. She says, "Your mom is coming." And then they can hear him talking through the walkie-talkie.
That must be like a big relief to Joyce, like getting to hear Will's voice and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Fortunately, probably for Joyce, she has no idea what happened next. So after Elle leaves or gets whisked away, and this is how the episode ends, the Demogorgon shows up, and you get the jump scare end to the episode of it coming into, and you know, looks like it's
destroying the fort.
Yeah, Castle Byers. Did you jump?
I don't know. I might have gotten used to it, but I'm sure it was still like, you know, like startle me. Yeah,
startle's a good way to put it. Until I knew it was coming, you know, and he's kind of creeping around. You have those low rumble growl things, gurgles, and you know it's coming. But yeah, it's still startling when you see it. Okay, we also have the two other things. We kind of mentioned it already. Hopper and Joyce go to the lab. Jonathan and Nancy decide they're going to finish what they started, go back out to the woods, and that's kind of where the episode ends. I mean, Hopper and Joyce get captured at the lab, and Jonathan and Nancy decide they're going to go back out there. End of episode. Such a good ending. The whole thing, from the point where Elle gets into the isolation tank all the way through to the jump scare. The episode was so good. And I like yelled at the computer when it was over because it'd only been 10 minutes and I want more. So yeah, great episode.
I was very sad whenever I watched the end of episode 7 and I was like, or it might have been episode 8. And I was like, oh, okay, time for the next episode. And then I finished episode 8 and I'm like, time for the next. Oh, what? Where's the next one? There better be an episode 9. But there wasn't.
No.
So I just kept rewatching it.
How many times have you seen the series? Because I remember when we started our podcast, episode 0, at that point you said you'd seen the entire season one time through, and then up through like episode 2 or something like that, 3, you had seen it a couple of times, and then the first episode you'd seen even more times than that. But since we started the podcast, you've watched the entire series, I think, 2 more times, at least.
I've probably watched the entire one, or the entire season 1 at least 6 times.
Yeah.
And then of course the earlier episodes, I've seen them more than the other ones. And then sometimes whenever I'm like working on my notes and stuff, in the blog posts, I'll watch the entire episode.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just skip through it depending on.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's episode 4, then, of course I'm going to watch my favorite one. So.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts on the episode?
Nope.
All right. Me either. Let's move into Notes from the Upside Down, which is the listener feedback section. All right. Well, Addi, we've got 2 feedbacks to share for this episode. The first one is a first-time feedbacker to this podcast. I teased it last week. Here it is. It's Jason. I think you're going to like this one.
Hi, Darrell and Addi. This is Jason in San Jose sending in some feedback for the Stranger Things podcast. First of all, I wanted to say how excited I was to find out that you guys were doing a podcast for Stranger Things. I really, really love this show. I first started watching the show a few weeks after it had dropped on Netflix. I had seen quite a few of my friends on Facebook give reviews of it, and it all seemed something right up my alley. My wife had watched the first couple episodes and recommended it for me. One night while she was working, I decided to put it on and went immediately upstairs and asked her if we could watch the rest. And I had to, unfortunately, wait for her for another day or 2. But we binge watched the rest of the season and just loved it. So my wife and many other people on Facebook had commented that it really resembled the Goonies and ET, Poltergeist, the X-Files, things that I all really loved. And growing up in the 80s, that was definitely part of my childhood. And I really, really loved how they have been able to replicate the 80s. Just thinking of the phone with the super long cord stretching into multiple rooms. As far as, the actors, I knew Winona Ryder. The sheriff, I was like watching him, couldn't quite place it. And my wife and I finally realized that, he played a news anchor on, the HBO show, The Newsroom. Thought he was, great in that, and loved him even way more in Stranger Things. But Millie Bobby Brown, I love her in this. And as I was watching her, with the shaved head, it was really hard to place where I had seen her before. But I had watched Once Upon a Time in Wonderland, and she played the young version of Alice. And, I thought she was excellent in that show. And, her performance in Stranger Things just, has blown me away. Looking at replicating the 80s, the song choices in the series is just absolutely amazing and takes me back to my younger days. So speaking of music, I know Darrell and many listeners who have heard the Stuff I Learned Yesterday podcast know that I am a huge fan of the band Tool. They have a song called Jimmy that has relevant lyrics to Stranger Things. The song came out in 1996, so it's just odd, the coincidence in the song. So in the song, the singer is referring to his childhood, and but speaks of 11 as being a character. And as soon as Stranger Things became part of the social consciousness, a lot of people in the Tool community on Facebook had made the connections with the song, and lots of memes started appearing, and I'm going to be posting one that has some of the lyrics on there. And I wanted to add this feedback as a preface to the meme that I'm going to post, as well as a fan-made video. The video does include stuff through the entire first season, all footage from the show cut to the music of the song Jimmy. And it's so awesome. Here's just a short clip of the song with the lyrics that are in the meme that I'm posting.
11 she was gone. 11 is when we wave goodbye. 11 is standing still, waiting for me to free and by coming home.
I'm really looking forward to season 2, and hoping that you'll continue podcasting. And I also wanted to add, I don't know if this how this will be taken, Addi, but you totally remind me of listening to your mom on the We Have to Go Back Lost podcast. Your voice is starting to match hers, and minus the Texas accent. Just really loving the family dynamics of the podcasting, and looking forward to hearing more in the future. Until then, this is Jason in San Jose. Namaste.
All right. Thank you, Jason.
Thanks, Jason.
We got a big kick out of your feedback. I told Carrie about it. Because Jason sent it over last night, and I listened to it just shortly before going to bed. And so I told Carrie about it right when we were going to bed, and she thought it was kind of funny. And then at dinner tonight, I actually pulled it out and played it for the whole family. Everyone got a big kick out of it then, particularly the part where we were watching Addi's face when he says, you're starting to sound like your mom, because we tease Carrie pretty much relentlessly about her accent. So Carrie and I were watching Addi's face to see how she would react. Between that time where Jason said, you're starting to sound like your mom, and then before he said it without the Texas accent. And it was perfect, Jason. It was a great setup. Her face was like, what? No way. Oh, okay.
I'm glad he cleared that up. Wouldn't want to be too much like her.
Oh, your mom's great.
Ugh,
You'll do well if you end up like her. Yeah, I was going to say something. Oh, Jason, you mispronounced Mame.
Meme. He said it right.
I don't think he did. All right. Good stuff. And that meme is over on our Facebook page with 11 and the lyrics to the Tool song. So really cool stuff. In fact, I picked Jason's brain after episode 6 because there was a painting in Mr. Clark's house when the creepy lab rat lady showed up at his house. And there's a painting on the back wall that looks like a Renaissance era painting, and the only thing I could find about it was from a black metal band called Heathen, and it's the artwork to one of their albums, even though it looks like it's an old Renaissance painting. So I don't know where they got the artwork from. If it was something that was originally created for their album. I couldn't find any other reference to it, but that can't be in there by mistake. If there's a death metal band album cover blown up into like a wall-size painting framed with a fancy frame on Mr. Clark's wall, I thought there has to be something to this. So I picked Jason's brain, knowing that he likes Tool and he has more knowledge of that genre of music than I do. But he was drawing a blank as well. So if you're listening and you've got some insight on that was again in episode 7. Episode 6 rather, then let us know. But anyway, glad to hear from Jason and get his thoughts on the show. You ready for some more feedback?
Sure.
All right, let's hear what Jeff has to say this week.
Transmissions from the Upside Down. Hey, Addi and Darrell, this is Jeff calling in about Chapter 7, The Bathtub. I really enjoyed the kind of shout-outs to Fringe with the sensory deprivation tank and Elle being able to use that to kind of locate Barb and see what kind of state she was in, and then see what kind of state Will was in. It's just interesting to me that he survived longer than Barb. I know Barb was cut and it was more of a direct attack, and his was not so, but it still makes me question how he lasted that long. But I really enjoyed seeing the two groups kind of form into one to try to get Will back, and everybody start working together so well, and not having any secrets among the group. But I really enjoyed the episode. I'm sad to say that we've only got one more chapter left before the fall, but I'm really enjoying y'all's podcast, and keep up the good work. X-Force 11 out.
All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
We also got this comment that came in via our Facebook group, which again is facebook.com/groups/Stranger Things GSM. And it comes in from Hannah. And she says, I just listened to last episode of the podcast again, and I think it's cool / kind of funny that Darrell will talk about a dark room or something that us 25-plus-year-old folks totally get, and Addi is too young to really understand. But then she'll come back with a full-on reference to Twilight Zone or Twin Peaks that, if I'm wrong, is even before my time of almost 30 years, and I don't know the reference to. Great podcast, you guys. Wish I had another episode now to tune into on my way to nanny. She's a full-time nanny, so that's a nice compliment she's giving you there.
Thank you.
And you met Hannah when we were in Chicago.
Yeah, I remember her.
Yep, she's really cool. So thanks, Hannah. Appreciate that. All right, well, that is it for the feedback segment this week. So just as I mentioned last week, since we're winding down our episode review period here of these episodes, we still want to hear from you. We're going to be doing another episode before Season 2 starts, and we would love to have your thoughts and predictions for that, thoughts on Season 1, predictions into Season 2, as part of that episode. So Addison, tell them how they can send in feedback for that episode.
If you would like to send in your feedback, you can send in your feedback by calling 304-837-2278, and it'll go straight to voicemail, and you can leave your feedback there. Or you can go to goldenspiralmedia.com and you can upload an audio file or use a SpeakPipe widget or type one out. So yeah.
Not bad at all. And I know there's a lot of information right there, so you did really good especially for your first time. But this is not your first time to give out our social media information, so lay it on us.
All right, our Instagram is Stranger Things GSM, our Twitter is Upside Down GSM, and our Facebook is facebook.com/group/Stranger Things GSM. I always say the Facebook one so fast, I feel like I'm going to mess up, but I haven't yet.
That was pretty fast.
but I do it fast every time, so.
Okay. Well, speaking of doing things fast, how about the quote of the week?
How does that have to do with anything fast?
It's a fake segue. We've had this discussion before.
All right. So, our quote of the week is from Mike Wheeler, and it's the scene whenever the dudes are outside and his mom's on the phone, and he it's right after Justin said, "We have to leave right now," and he says the quote of the week, which is, "If anybody asks where I am, I've left the country."
Well, I don't understand. Is there something wrong in the house? Do I need to call
wrong in
somebody?
the house. 1 second.
Mark! We need to leave right now.
Michael! If anyone asks where I am, I've left the country.
What?
I'm glad you chose that scene. It was one of my favorites for sure, and especially when thinking about a quote to go along with it. So, nice job.
Yeah, my two favorite people are in the same room.
Mike and Dustin?
Yep.
What about Elle?
Oh, well.
Oh, wow. All right. Well.
I mean, she's my favorite girl character.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move into predictions. Okay, so I've got one prediction this week. And again, I just want to remind you, Addi, next week, you're going to be on equal footing with me. So we need to hear some predictions from you.
I've had some predictions.
Okay. Well, you may need to remind me of what those were because I forget things.
I haven't told you them yet.
Oh, okay. Well, good. I didn't forget them then. For this week, here's my prediction.
You forgot whether or not I've told you.
yeah, I did. I just thought it was really weird. We've talked a lot about how Hopper is a pretty good cop, a really good cop, and he's done a lot of smart things. We talked about in this episode how they did some smart things. So for him to break into the lab was really risky. It was risky for him to do it the first time, and he got caught the first time. I think he was thinking if he can get to the lab, he can get to the hole in the wall and go to the upside down. Because that's probably the only way he knows how to get to the upside down. But it just seemed really dumb to just go almost like barging, like they weren't really being that sneaky.
Especially whenever he had Joyce with him. You'd think he would be even more careful.
Right. Yeah. So I think that getting captured was part of his plan. I don't know how that works into his plan because you would assume they're going to put you in some sort of cell or do something to confine you. But I still think that getting captured was part of his plan. Otherwise, he turned into a dumb cop all of a sudden, which is disappointing in terms of the writing of the show. But I don't think it matters because I still say that Will Byers is coming back to the right side up next week. But I think Jonathan and Nancy will be the ones that will rescue him. That's my prediction.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to find out in just a few minutes because we're almost done and I'm going to watch it.
Now it's time for the meme of the week. So anyway.
The meme of the week?
I said it fast so you wouldn't say it. All right. So it's a picture of Will Byers' face photoshopped over Will Smith's face from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And the caption is, "Now this is a story all about how my life got turned upside down." I like it. It just sit right there. So you have become a prince of a town called Bel-Air.
But this is what I was saying earlier, where it could be Brenner. And he could say, "Now this is a story all about how my van got turned upside down." Huh? See, it works that way too.
You're not funny.
I think it's pretty funny.
No.
I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree.
I guess we'll just have to agree that I'm right and you're not.
Okay. And that, my friends, is going to bring us to a close. Once again, you can follow us on Instagram at Stranger Things GSM, Twitter, Upside Down GSM, or Facebook.com/groups/Stranger Things GSM. We would love to just open the floodgates now of feedback now that I am going to be spoiler free now. I'm caught up essentially. By the time this podcast comes out, certainly I will be. And I'd love to just have open dialogue about the show. So join us over there. And we should be a lot more active now that we can, like, I can go search out memes and search out news articles and tweet about those things.
You said it right.
I know how to say it right. I just do it to annoy you. So I'm looking forward to being unsaddled with this burden of trying to stay spoiler free. It's awesome. It's also awesome that you have joined us for this episode. We hope you'll join us next week for episode 8. And as always,
Stay strange.